Lovely to see you. So we're streaming from where are we streaming from?
From home.
From home.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Nothing, don't worry about that. Okay.
we're back again. So we're streaming, and we thought we'd pop on Facebook Land to kind of like reintroduce ourselves. And many of you are probably on our friends list, whether it be on Maurice's friends list or my friends list, and you often see us posting posters about events. In particular, the event we're going to be talking about today is the Coffee Morning for Survivors of Abuse that we have been hosting for a very long time now. It's actually coming up to 5 years, not quite, but it'll be 5 years in, I think it's September.
August, September, approximately,
Yeah,
yeah.
the 3rd, something like that. So, we've not done a Facebook Live on that before, and we just thought, let's share that story. Why did it start? And most importantly, you know, who are we to be doing that anyway? Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that people understand the motives behind when you're doing something, but also understand the passion where that comes from as well, where that seed has grown from. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think we wanted to bring it to a wider audience and really just give a background of how it all began, the reasons why it began, and where we are currently now and where we're planning to take it. I think that's really why we wanted to jump online right now and just bring it to a wider audience and share with everyone exactly what it is that we do collectively with regards to women survivors of abuse, and how people could probably get in contact with us if they themselves fall into that category, or they know someone who's fallen into that category, whether previously or even right now, may be suffering some kind of abuse and need a particular forum in which they can feel comfortable to speak about their experiences, and potentially grow from there and um, move on in a particular way. Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of rewind and start from the beginning. Who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you?
Okay, so let's rewind and go from the very beginning.
Yeah.
My name's Maurice Ellington, and with regards to women survivors of abuse, my particular area of interest is neurolinguistics and also coaching. Neurolinguistics really is about studying and understanding communication, how we communicate with ourselves, how we give meaning to our experiences, and how those experiences essentially impact our behaviours and essentially our outcomes. And it's through understanding that process we're able to adjust and make modifications to events that we have given a particular meaning in the past, and reshape them so that we can have different experiences moving on. So really it's a wonderful tool in which we can use to work with people who want different outcomes in their life and different experiences, just by making little tweaks here and there in their thought processes, and also little tweaks in terms of the meaning they've given certain experiences. So yeah, I've been studying neurolinguistics for a number of years now. I'm actually a master practitioner in neurolinguistics. I'm also a life coach as well. So I have a really deep understanding and a really deep passion with working with people to enable them to really essentially achieve what's at their core, their innate goals. And it's those two passions really which has led me into this area of working with women survivors of abuse.
Okay. And in terms of my name's Malakh Zebulun, and I guess what brought me here was my own experiences with child abuse and domestic violence, and that once I got to a particular age um, for me, I had to start working on me, to start investing on that healing journey for me. And part of that healing journey that I encountered was uh, finding out about NLP, and also not just learning as a practitioner, but alternatively kind of using those techniques for myself as well. I'm also a coach. I coach women, specifically who have been either affected by abuse, but also what I attract a lot in terms of the clients that I really love working with are women who are finding personal obstacles in their business. And what I found is um, those who are facing obstacles in their business have tended, and I mean personal obstacles, not just a business obstacle.
Yeah.
Those that I attract in terms of coaching have tended to have experienced child abuse, domestic violence. So that's the kind of areas of work that I've done, and I've worked in that with young people and women for the last 38 years. So that's kind of the work that I do. And what kind of brought us to, I suppose, just before the coffee morning is two things actually. First, I wrote a book about my own journey, and I stepped out as a speaker. And as I was speaking in the audience, many of the women constantly asked, do you do workshops? Do you do whatever? So we spoke about that because we were doing workshops together anyway. And we created a workshop called Learning to Let Go, the Learning to Let Go program. So as we were doing the program, what we found, which was a weekend program of different techniques that people could do about self-investing, self-love, understanding their own personal boundaries, understanding relationships for themselves, making decisions, dealing with conflicts, and all different elements that were in those programs. But one of the things that kept on coming up at the end of the weekender was the advancements an individual felt that they made for themselves, a woman made for themselves. They wanted to meet up again. And I think because of the client load that I had at the time, and because this was just a workshop which didn't lean for that, what we decided to do was do a coffee morning as a place where, well, it's kind of like the group from every workshop had kind of grouped themselves, that they had boosted their own confidence, and it gave them a space to do that peer support.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the workshops were standalone events.
Yeah.
And, with standalone events, they start and they finish.
Yeah.
And, whatever happens after that, people were essentially left to their own devices in a way. And such was the success of the workshops that they really didn't want it to end, or they didn't want the experience to end. There was so much more that was, to be unpacked and explored, that we felt compelled to offer something else, and we didn't want to go from workshop to workshop to workshop, etc., because that can be quite heavy and quite almost like a teaching experience, etc. It was clear that the women that were attending wanted something a little bit more relaxed, where they could actually feel safe and comfortable to talk about themselves. And
do you know what I think it was as well? Making themselves accountable to each other.
Yeah.
I think that was, it's like they started a journey, and they didn't want to kind of fall off of that journey.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep each other accountable to each other, and in a nurturing way. So certain of the techniques, whether they've started it, it was about, not stopping it, or how are you getting on with that kind of check-in process. So when we started doing the coffee mornings, we did it as a physical meet-up, and that was taking place in Victoria. We did it once a month, every Saturday, the first Saturday of every month, so it was just standard. It was always the first Saturday of every month. And that went really, really, really well. And then it's always been a very topical session. We've always had, the way we operate it is we come up with a topic every single session, and after the group do their check-in, I've got to say it's not like an AA meeting. It is so relaxed.
It's a coffee morning.
It's a coffee morning.
It's exactly what you'd expect, you know, of.
But I think it's a bit more than that actually. Even though we call it coffee morning, it's a support session.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just a coffee morning, and it also enables the individual to address certain issues or to think about certain issues that they'd never thought about before. You know?
I mean, there clearly the coffee mornings had structure because we had, you know, we kind of essentially facilitated the way in which it went by coming up with topics for discussion, but it was led by the individuals that were there in terms of where the discussion went. So it was relaxed and it was open and it was obviously non-judgmental as you would expect. And the level of engagement that we noticed from the people that attended was and still is absolutely amazing. Everyone acted as somebody else's support within the group. Everyone had a shoulder to lean on, and they felt, you know, this great camaraderie within the group, and that the group, you know, meeting on those Saturday mornings was of, you know, huge benefit. I mean, we, you know, typically don't know what people are going through throughout, you know, the 6 days before the meeting, but, you know, come the meeting on the Saturday, people could, you know, check in and just say, you know, how their week was, you know, how good it was, what were their challenges, etc. And everyone would chime in and still do.
And do you know what's important about that as well for me is you don't underestimate what it takes for someone to turn up. Yeah, because they, not even just that week could have been quite a hard week for them emotionally. Maybe they've had to deal with some characters in their life, whether it's work colleagues or whatever. Emotions might have been high, or they might have even felt low. Whatever those situations have been, you don't underestimate that that person has taken the time out of their whole week. You know, they've even managed to get themselves out of bed, they've managed to get themselves ready, they've had to deal with things along the way. Even, I don't care even if it's trying to find your bus pass and you just can't find it on that morning. You know, anything could have come up to make them decide that they weren't coming. You know, but they've taken their time out, they've dealt with anything they've had to deal with, and they've shown up. But they've shown up for themselves because it's become a important place for them, a time for them to invest in them. And stop investing in everyone else. It's their time.
It was, it clearly is. It is a time for them to be poured into in a way, really, by their peers. And the interesting thing, I think, about exactly what you're saying, that, you know, when people made up their minds to come to the coffee morning, is that it caused them to focus on something and not just regress and, you know, become insular or anything. They had to make a decision that they're going to get themselves ready to dust themselves off if they've had a, you know, really crappy week, and to prepare and make that effort to attend the coffee
even
morning.
if they can't dust themselves off, attending the coffee morning enables them to either they may have had something that caused them to be triggered, and it's to be able to come and get that support. And we've been in certain situations where we've decided, okay, what someone has brought to the coffee morning, everyone felt that they would benefit from discussing that, not the personalised bit, but how you deal with a trigger, you know, and what techniques each of different people have shared, because sometimes it just takes that sharing for you to be able to either change your own states, your emotional states, or give you something to add into your own toolbox in terms of a resource that you can use. And most importantly, which we all tend to forget, you know, when we're going through something in our life, or that we're actually very resourceful. You know, that we can actually pull those resources from out of us, you know, and use them.
I mean, that's really one of the presuppositions of neurolinguistics, is that we believe that we are probably more resourceful than we give ourselves credit for, and that we do, you know, if we want to spend the time to turn the spotlight inside instead of looking for external answers, we will somehow, at some point or another, find an answer to the issues or the concerns that we are currently dealing with. And that experience, of having the coffee morning and obviously being moderated and facilitated by ourselves, enables everyone that attended to really try and search within themselves to try and find, you know, the answer, or even just part of the answer, or something, a catalyst to get them on the right track. So it was really kind of beneficial in that way. Do you remember some of the topics we've covered over the years?
Yeah, social intelligence.
Social intelligence. You might have to break that
emotional
down.
Intelligence. Sorry, emotional intelligence.
Yeah. What do you mean by that one?
That might be in regards of the different types of resources that we can use and the different states that we have and how we can change them. Or those emotional states that we need to build up as well.
Yeah.
We've dealt with different aspects of mental health. We've dealt with boundaries. We've dealt with relationships. We've dealt with. Oh, you have to help me.
Yeah. No. What was your favourites? Because I know we've often touched on strategic thinking and moving forward, because the whole emphasis of the coffee morning is about getting women survivors to, first of all, love themselves and to accept that what they are in control of is all that they are in control of, which is themselves. And we've looked at goal setting and how they can set themselves, even if it's small incremental steps to move forward, how important that process is, how important that actual methodology is, right, in terms of building their own self-esteem, etc. So I remember, we've had many sort of like coffee mornings where we looked at their aspirations.
Even things like procrastination.
Yeah, we looked at why do people stay where they are. Yeah.
There's loads, but I think, like you said, as coaches, what we do is about moving forward. And if you are in a particular time or space in your life where you need that support because you're dealing with things like flashbacks and things like that, maybe you need counselling, or you need alternative support, or if you're in a particular crisis, then that's another service somewhere else that you'll need that. But this is for those people who are now ready to start building them. And it's also about breaking all the limited mindset that that abuse has left you with, all the doubts about you. And it's about building up your confidence, building up your self-esteem, and like you've touched on, things like self-love, dealing with topical things like I remember a time we had a discussion on, someone brought it to the group of, they're in a new relationship, when's the best time to tell them? But I've gone through, I've had experience in a, sorry, I'll get my words out, I've experienced abuse in my life. No? Should I bring this up on the first date? Should I bring this up later? When would you build that? No? And also things like, what does trust mean to you? Because we're kind of taking for granted how simplistic these subjects might sound. But for me, when I look back over my years of my life, when I went through, I'm not talking about the childhood abuse, because I wasn't in control of childhood abuse, that was happening to me. And in domestic violence, I found myself in those particular situations. But one thing I didn't have at the time is I wasn't in a situation where I could explore those discussions so that I could think those through for myself. And I think that's the beauty of what this group does. It gives you a chance to understand what these topics mean to you. What kind of choices do they create for you, for your life? What does control mean for you? And it's also, I think, by exploring all those things, gives you your power. you know.
Yeah.
And power doesn't have to be this super, you know, superwoman, superman kind of
Mm.
feel. It's your power to make the decisions that you feel you want to make for your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good point. I mean, one of the other things that we've touched on a number of times is values
Oh
and
yeah.
defining
I love
your
working on
values.
values.
Exactly, because it's something which we actually don't spend a lot of time
Yeah.
on, you know, on a casual basis. We have to be forced to think about, you know, defining exactly what our values is. But once we do that, once you decide to outline to yourself, even write them down, what your particular values are, that in itself gives you an additional power because you start to define who you are, what you're prepared to accept, what you're not prepared to accept.
The
And
values are so important.
yeah,
They're
it does.
embedded
It,
in
it,
literally
it frames you.
everything you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether they are the people that you are surrounded by, to the jobs that you take, to the decisions of the places you go. It doesn't matter what you do. Everything is underlined by values and beliefs.
Mm.
Yeah, that they are so embedded together. So it's so important to understand where your values come from. And also, I think in my experience and some of the experience that I've worked with, the women that I've worked with, that sometimes we don't understand what we value. And I say my experience from my past. We don't because we've been in abusive relationships and that power, or we felt that power was taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that person valued became our value because it was the stepping, you know, the tiptoeing around
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they valued, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that was about keeping ourselves safe. So, you know, having a space where you can actually explore that for yourself
Mm-hmm.
is vital
Mm.
for all the decisions that you make is vital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be talking about values in a future coffee morning when we,
Yeah.
and I think the importance of that is that just imagine, you know, we gave an exercise to someone and said, okay, you've got 30 seconds to tell me who are you.
Hey.
Think about the title.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you?
And immediately you start to think about, well, who am I? You know, what do I stand for? What
Mm.
makes me me?
Mm.
Yeah, and that's really really important. And even though values are contextual, because our values change depending on whichever hat we're wearing, whether we are being professional at work or whether it be we're being a parent at the moment or whatever, the values can slightly change. You know, generally speaking, once you start to identify your values for yourself, you know who you are. You can confidently say, I am, you know, Jane Doe, and I stand for this, I represent this, I believe in that, because you've identified your values.
Yeah.
So that's a great topic which we've discussed in the past, and I'm pretty sure it's going to come up pretty soon in the
Oh
near
yeah,
future in the
it
coffee
will do.
mornings, isn't it?
And it's also just to share this with the coffee mornings. What we do as well is we have a WhatsApp group. So when people come along to the coffee morning, they have the option whether they want to join the WhatsApp group, and that's the continuous support throughout the week,
Mm.
or to just to share motivational things in the group, or just celebrate someone's birthday, whatever it is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or particular occasion. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's become in itself its own family by
Yeah.
having that there. So you've kind of got that 24-hour, I say 24-hour, but it's also about building friendships. So
Yeah.
I know from the physical meetups that we've done, where people have been able to support each other because it is a peer support group, have been able to support each other and go off to meetings or, you know, check something out with someone before they go ahead and go and do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to just come to us because we are facilitating and we're the
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for me. That's one of the beautiful things about the coffee morning is that, you know, the individuals that do attend aren't solely reliant on us. They actually do, you know, act as a peer-to-peer support group. And
Some of them are all professionals within themselves anyway.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they've all got, you know, you might have a few people who are either students, a few people who may even be unemployed, but many people also working in different professions. So everyone comes from different spheres of life, and regardless where they've come from, there's something that holds each of them together, you know. But do you know, one of the things that I feel is there, and I think it's come because of the people that we are, and I've got to say that's love. You know, there's a nurturing side. I'm not saying a nurturing where we carry people, but an encouraging, nurturing side to, you know, that we turn up on time all the time. We're constantly there. We've been that body of, you know, we've just been there for people. You know, we've not broken with it. It's really important to keep the trust element there as well. You know.
What would you say is the biggest thing that you enjoy about doing the coffee mornings?
I personally love to see the change. I think we've seen so much growth in individuals, and even doesn't matter whether it is small for someone to big to someone, doesn't matter. It's the growth. To me, to even after, you know, it could be 2 sessions, it could be 10 sessions. You see that on everyone. You see the difference, the impact that it's had in their life. Now, I'm not going to call names or anything. We went somewhere last Sunday. Sunday just gone.
Which is last Sunday.
That is last Sunday, all right. And someone came along and from the coffee morning, and what they shared, I found so moving. You know, this isn't about breaking confidentiality. It's just giving a feedback in terms of their review. And we've heard this before though, and that was, you guys have no understanding how much of a great impact you've had in my healing. You know, and to hear something like that makes you realise how valued this space is. It's not about us. And I have to keep on saying to, like we said to that person, you turned up for you. You know, we may have provided that space, but the credit and everything else goes to you. You turned up to invest in you. To me, that makes me feel so emotional. You know, that someone has finally